Thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us today, Kyleigh, and taking the time to talk to us about your app that you recently launched, Sober October. But before we get into that, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into no code, what your background is? It seems like you have a pretty interesting story.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I love talking about no code and low
Sure.
code. So I'm excited. Yeah, my background is in product design. So I worked for various tech companies and startups for most of my career, doing like user research, product design. And I always had these ideas for my own products. And so I would design them in Figma, I'd create a prototype, I'd maybe show it around to a few people, but I could never bring any of these ideas to life. So they just sort of stayed and died in Figma. And then been on active on Twitter for the last like 5 or 6 years, and people started talking about no code. And so I started looking into that and realized I could use some of these tools to start bringing my ideas to life. And so I used like Airtable, Twilio, and AutoCode to build Herold, which is my first product. And that sort of just set me off on this like no code, low code um, journey. And it's just been so fun to actually be able to bring different ideas to life and be part of this community. It's just so much fun. So I can dig in anywhere, but that's sort of the high
That's
level.
sort of the genesis of it. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
including my own. That's the story so many people have. They're in one specific field. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's in product, maybe it's in support. Who knows? But they're
Hmm.
in one piece of the organization or one piece of the puzzle, and everybody, I think, has ideas at some level. But
Yeah.
10 years ago, you were sort of stuck unless you could raise a lot of money or find the perfect co-founder who was super technical. You basically had no chance of getting this product to market in any way. So what happened is that a lot of people just had these ideas and they just died, and people got
Hmm.
frustrated until no code came, into the scene in a big way. And let's just say 2020 would probably be what I would call the breakout year for no code, even though it existed way before that. But I think so many people can
Yeah.
can sort of like share in on your story and relate to how you were building things in Figma in your example, and then wanted to bring some of these products to life. So you talked about
Yeah.
Herold. Tell me a little bit about Herold, when that started, and you talked about the tech stack, but when did Herold first come to life, and what is it?
It was actually 2020. So you're spot on. That was
Oh,
like
cool.
right when the no code movement started picking up, I think, or at least when I became aware of it. Um, so yeah, it was like April 2020, pandemic. I'm sure this is also a lot of people's story. We had all this time all of a sudden. So I finally had like the mental space and time to start tinkering with something. And so I built Herold, which was really like my first um idea that I've been thinking about for a while, which is an SMS-based habit tracker. So, I studied cognitive science in school. I'm big into, self-improvement and psychology and all that stuff. And there's all this science that shows that habit tracking is really good for you and can help you reach your goals. But I could never stick with it. Like I would create these spreadsheets in my journal, all the habits I wanted to track, and I would lay it out all beautifully. And then I would track for 2 days and then just fall off. And I've even found these, like if I look through past notebooks, I'll find these empty habit trackers. Some of them are just empty. Like I never even tracked one. Um, so that's always been hard for me. But I had this idea, well, if some service was like texting me and I could respond via text, maybe that's something I could stick with because that's not something I have to remember to go have to do, but it's just, I'm already texting people back. So it's already kind of like in my face. And so that's Herold. He's a habit tracker. You put in your habits. Let's say you want to build a meditation habit, and he'll text you every day. Hey, did you meditate yesterday? And you just text back yes or no. And it's such a small thing, but it can have such a big impact if you're really trying to change behaviors or build a new habit. So actually, the first habit I set was, did you work on your side project for 30 minutes? And so this was when I had a full time job, and so I was really trying to make it a habit of just continually making progress on this, even though I had other responsibilities. And through Herold, I like really built this habit of just working on it every day. And then, um, yeah, now I don't even have to think about working on any of my side projects for 30 minutes. I have to like remind myself to stop working on them. But yeah, it was a game changer.
Yeah, so your habit tracker has worked for you and has helped you build good habits around building and shipping features for your product. And
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful because we all have this problem, right? Where we want to improve something or change something or just stick to a new habit, and it's easy to sort of get it set up and configured with however you want to do that, whether it be in a notebook or a spreadsheet
Hmm.
or a Notion doc or whatever it may be. But that's that's the problem right there is that you get all this energy to build up the template, but then it never actually works and we never follow through with these habits.
Hmm.
And it's sort of awkward to ask a family or friend to keep you accountable because maybe you don't want them to know. It's sort of a private thing as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to have this anonymous element of the habit tracker, keeping you accountable. At least for me, I think that is the big part of what jumped out to me about the Sober October is like, well, I don't really want like to text my mom and tell her I drank alcohol
Hmm.
today, but I feel comfortable doing it with a bot, which is kind of I think part of the appeal of this sort of like AI text-based habit tracker is it's store sort of private
Yeah.
and anonymous, which is nice.
Yeah. And you can stick with it
So
after that, initial motivation, dies off. Yeah.
exactly. So Herold is really sort of agnostic in terms of whatever habit you want to, in comparison to Sober October, which is, obviously very specifically focused on one thing, which is alcohol. Herold is you just tell Herold whatever you want to improve and it will sort of remind you and try to keep you on track with whatever that habit might be, whether it be meditation or drinking less in the Sober October example or working on your side project, that sort of thing. It's you can put any habit into Herold. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And you can track right now, you can track up to 4 at a time. So I have some people that are tracking multiple things. Um, and yeah, and then I sort of realized with that, it's a great product. Like people find it, sign up, and they retain pretty well, but it's kind of hard to market because it's so broad and, everyone has a habit tracker. I feel like that's everyone's first idea or first product that they build. So it's just a really competitive, noisy space. And I've just found it's hard to find a good growth or marketing strategy. And so that's when I started playing around with Sober October challenges and the Dry January challenge as a way to experiment with different niches. So yeah, like what if I just focused on drinking habits, or what if I just focused a product on, exercise habits? Like, there's so many different niches you could go down. And I thought maybe if I niche down, that's a common, advice for indie makers is like niching down can help you market it and find better users. So that's what I've been starting to do. But like Harold's still running. Yeah, he's the general guy. And then I'm experimenting with these other niches.
Yeah, it's sort of like side project led growth for your main project, right? Um,
Yeah.
but I think it's interesting just sort of strategy wise, how you're sort of using a different brand for these dry January, sober October versus having it be some sort of course or challenge within Herald itself. Are you eventually tying the users from sober October into some sort of a marketing for Herald to try to get them into the bigger habit tracker app, or are you sort of keeping those separate?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with Dry January, that was all under Harold. And at the end of that challenge, I sent people like a final text like, hey, do you want to keep going? You can sign up for Harold, or you could keep just tracking your drinks if you want to just focus on that. And I didn't get a lot of conversion there, which was surprising. I thought this was a genius funnel, and genius strategy, and it was going to
Right.
bring in all these new users to Harold. And it didn't really happen that way. So um, I think after the challenge, people were like, okay, I'm good for a while. I just did something really good for myself that was challenging. I'm not really ready to start, trying to do something else. So that was a big learning, but I still think like they're in the ecosystem now. I have their emails, so I can reach back out um, at different times, and maybe they'll be ready to track different things. So yeah, it wasn't exactly this like beautiful funnel that I thought. But eventually, so Herold's the general habit tracker, and then I have this new character, 𝗞𝘆𝗶𝗵𝗵𝘀, which I think is going to be the like drinking focused one. And so then Dry January and Sober October challenges will kind of be under 𝗞𝘆𝗶𝗵𝗀. And then I have this vision of just building out a bunch of different bots that are focused on different things, and you can kind of choose which bot you want to work with, and um, almost as a way just to see which one is resonating with the market the most. Is it a
Gotcha.
drink tracking app, or is it an exercise thing? Like, where is the biggest opportunity? So this is a way to kind of test multiple markets.
That's super interesting. I agree with you that I thought that would have been a really good
Yeah,
funnel as well, to funnel these sort of one-off challenges into your main product. I'm also share your surprise that that didn't work as
yeah,
well as you intended, but I like how you pivoted and, creating these different characters. I'm personally doing the challenge, not perfectly so far, but I'm
yeah.
getting to know Arby, and I feel like he's or she is my friend. And I feel like that, I look forward to the message every day. So I think that there's something that's very simple about just getting a text message that you can respond to, that keeps me accountable, but also something I kind of look forward to, honestly. It's like a little win every single day that I can thank the
Yeah.
hero, for my result. So you started, I think you mentioned that you started with a dry January. Was that this past January that you launched Dry
Yeah.
January?
Yeah, exactly. So I launched that one on Product Hunt, and that one did really well. That one did a lot better than the Sober October one, which we can get into. But yeah, that was just this year.
Yeah, can you talk about the sort of success of both of those, sort of where you launched? Did you launch anywhere else besides Product Hunt? I know you have a little bit, at least according to your Twitter profile, a little bit of an
Hmm.
SEO background. So I'm curious to see if you deployed any of those skills to help with the marketing of the launch. And yeah, just like curious to hear your learnings between the Dry January and the Sober October, and why you think one might have performed significantly better than the other.
Yeah. So the Dry January one did really well. I posted it on Product Hunt, before it was like that last week of December. And I got number 3 product of the day, which is the highest I've ever gotten. Um, and I ended up with like 60 something
Nice.
people in the challenge. Um, and so that was a success in my book. And the challenge went really well. I didn't get a lot of conversions after, but it's a paid challenge. So there's like a little upside there.
Right.
And so when October was coming up, I was like, oh, I'll just do the same thing. I'll repeat the same playbook, and this will probably do even better because, I have more followers now. I have more like bigger audience, and maybe I'll get some of the people from Dry January to do this one. So I did the same thing and launched on Product Hunt, and um, yeah, I didn't even get in the top 10, uh, which was sad. And I think we ended up with like we have 11 people in the challenge. So I was like, shoot, what was the difference? And I think it was a couple things. I think one, why I was able to get number 3 of the day that week versus not even getting the top 10 this time, was just the competitiveness of the day. So I think that last week of December, not many people were posting on
Right.
product. So a lot of people are taking time off, um, or just think that's a slow week to post. So I think I had less competition. And then this time it was just a random Tuesday or Wednesday. And so there's a lot more products on there. So I think that played a role. And I think also Sober October just isn't as popular as Dry January, at least so far.
Right.
So that was sort of working against me. Um, but yeah, for both, I really just did the product at launch, which is kind of lazy. You just upload the photos, your description, and you post it. I try not to over engineer it. I know some people have full playbooks on how to launch on Product Hunt and get to the top, and um, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of effort for just like one spike in traffic. Like, I'd rather put
Yeah.
all that energy into, yeah, like an SEO strategy or something that's going to give me more reliable, more high intent, consistent traffic. So I haven't done any SEO. I've done a little bit of SEO for Herold, which worked well, and I just um ran out of time to keep working on it, but I haven't done any for the challenges yet. But yeah, so there's a lot of learnings there, but at this point, I just want the Sober October challenge to be like a good experience for the people in it. I've been able to fine tune a couple things, and it really helped me get 𝗞𝗄𝗏, this like drinking brand, out the door. So that was a positive as well.
Yeah, and Product Hunt is sort of like a black box. There's really so many factors, and like you talked about, there's a lot of people that have entire teams that are focused on Product
Hmm.
Hunt launches within bigger companies, of course. But it's really hard to predict. One, the quality of the users that you'll get in the first place, because there's a lot of people just sort of um, lurking on Product Hunt to see what's out there, and they might never become a paid customer, even if you have a highly
Hmm.
evolved product. And two, I mean, you're also launching, this between January and now. There's just so many in the age of AI, right? There's so many more. The competition is so much stronger. There's so many people shipping
Hmm.
products, and I think that makes it harder to stand out for sure. Um,
Yeah.
I will say you commented on just sort of tweaking the RP model. There's been some from a
Yeah.
user perspective. There's been some really nice tidbits that I've enjoyed, like stats on how many people are still in the challenge. You know, how far you've come along, sort of hitting these milestones. You've hit 25% of the challenge. Great work. Those little like
Hmm.
feedback loops are really helpful. And I think that as a user, it's been really nice to see those little bit of stats in there. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you were in the challenge. That's so awesome. How has the AI responses been for you? Sometimes he can like reply with weird things. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
been really good. I would say
Okay.
accurate. He definitely this the one day I missed, he was pretty judgmental of me. But that's okay. I deserved it. I expected that, and but also positive. It was like sort of a shame on you, but you know what? You got this
Yeah,
next day
that's a work
type
in
thing.
progress to try to figure out the right, voice, and some people love the tough love, and they like that sort of but,
Yeah.
yeah, other people want it to be more positive, so, there's some iterations to be had there, but glad generally he's been nice so far.
Yeah, and I think I've used some other habit trackers in the past, and I think one of the inputs that because everybody's different, right? So one of the inputs you can put in is how do you want? You sort of want what
Mhm.
kind of bedside manner do you want? Do you want something that's sort of like more direct or nicer? Because everybody responds differently to feedback, and grows that way. So that might be an interesting input that you could sort of control as a user.
Yeah,
I think that might give
we'll
you
put it on the roadmap.
for sure. There you go. Okay, so let's move on. So overall, you went from sort of a product designer in Figma to sort of like this developer, if you will, building with like a mix of low code and no code tools. You talked
Mhm.
about your tech stack earlier. Can you sort of share? I mean, I think that you probably would say that it's empowered you. You're now like shipping products. It's probably a lot of fun. But what are your overall thoughts on the power of low code and no code development for building high quality products? What challenges have you faced when you're building with only sort of like low code and no code? Are there points where you're like, oh, I really, really need to develop here. I'm really stuck. Or have you been able to basically do
Yeah,
anything
it's
that you
such a
want
good
to do?
question. I think the biggest upside with no code and low code is I feel like I'm actually getting better at code through this, and I'm sort of building my confidence
Right.
in it. Um, I'm not quite there yet. Like starting a project from code from scratch seems really scary, but I've been starting to look at some like boilerplate things. Like Mark on Twitter just launched his Ship Fast product, and there's this like other one I looked at called Indie Stack, where it's sort of giving you some code to then build off of. So I feel like I'm almost graduating to that. Like I'm starting to look at it, and I feel like that'll happen eventually. But I wouldn't have gotten there without like all this time with no code and low code, because you sort of start absorbing some of the um, concepts just as you go. Like I have a development environment and a production environment, so I kind of had to learn that, and I had to play with environment variables and writing some like simple like if statements or for loops. Um, so yeah, I see it as sort of building my confidence. I think that's my end goal is to eventually be really comfortable in code, just like unlock that next level of what I'm able to do. But I haven't hit too many constraints yet. I think yeah, I take that back. I guess in some ways I have hit constraints, but they've been helpful constraints. So that's a big thing in design is like constraints can actually be positive and help you focus and just sort of like limit the options. And so because I'm in no code, I'm not really comfortable in like front end development. So I haven't really built out the front end of Herold, which would be like a dashboard to manage your habits and all of that. Which is bad in some ways because some users email me and they're like, I really want to be able to do this. Cause right now you just manage it through Typeform. It's just kind of clunky. Um, and so I've got users requesting that, but because I have that as a constraint that I don't know exactly how I would do that with no code, I'm focusing more on like the marketing side and like what's the right niche. So I'm experimenting with art and these other
Right.
things. Whereas if I was a developer, I may have just built the whole thing and then realized, oh, but I can't market this or this is really hard to market. So in some ways that constraint is positive and it's making me get all the other things in place before I really start building everything out. Because you could build stuff for days. Like I could do that feature we just talked about where you can change the, the voice of the AI and how it responds to you. And so yeah, it's forced me to get those building blocks of like marketing and product market fit in place first. Um but yeah, I just and the big benefit of it too is that you could just get started and start getting feedback.
Yeah.
Like I can have this product out in the wild. I'm launching a product and I have real users, I have paying users. Like I'm learning so much that I wouldn't have learned if you know, I don't know, took a coding class and waited till I felt like really confident in code to get started. Like I just wouldn't have made any of this progress. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's that's been my experience as well. There's been lots of times where I've had this like, huge idea for this complicated product, but because I'm not really sure how to get there at the beginning, it just sort of forces you to be simple and work towards product market fit first. And then from there you can iterate and slowly build those features as you're, becoming more comfortable with the concepts that are involved to
Hmm.
get you there. So I think it's actually a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I think very relatable for a lot of people who are, using no code tools who are non-technical or full stack developers, for instance. So super
Yeah.
cool.
And I know
Go
some
ahead.
people too, like I think in my head, I'm like eventually going to graduate to code, but I know some people like just end up doing everything in no code, like the bubble developers and
Right.
those makers. So I think you can keep pushing it and stick with it. Um, so I think you like either way. For some reason, bubble kind of scares me. It just seems like I don't know. It seems like I've tried it a few times. It just seems like hard to control, and obviously there's all those options that you can get it to do what you want to do, but that makes it kind of complex. And so I'm like, at that point, I should just learn how to code. Um,
Right.
but I see some people like building Airbnb replicas on it, and it works for them. So I'm like, that's awesome. If you figured out how to wrangle that and use it, um, like more power to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, full stack applications built on
Yeah,
Bubble. Swapstack is a newsletter advertising platform completely built on Bubble that just got acquired by Beehive, which is a
yeah,
newsletter ESP in the space. So it can be done, but there's definitely a much bigger learning curve there. And I'm sort of in the same camp as you in that I like building smaller products with multiple tools. I think there's some fun in that, sort of just like for lack of a better word, the hacker in me, or the sort of like, uh, I don't know. I'll have to cut this out, but I'm not sure exactly why I like that. But I do enjoy sort of stringing
yeah.
tools together to make things work. It sort of seems fun for me. So So
Yeah.
what tools, speaking of tools, what tools are you, most excited about maybe that you haven't tried out? Is there anything out there that you've seen that you're like, "Oh, this is something that I'm definitely gonna get into and check out." What are you excited about in this space?
That's a good question. Yeah. So my main stack is like Airtable, Autocode, and Twilio. And then, yeah, like I said, I've been looking at some of these like boilerplate code things, like the ship fast, to maybe go that direction. I think, yeah, I had another thought on the bubble versus like graduating to code. And I think because I took some coding in college, and even post college, I've taken some like web development courses. Since I already have that background, I'm like getting pulled that direction. But maybe if you didn't have any of that, it would make more sense to go just like stick with the no code and low code tools. But that's what's so awesome is like there's so many different ways you can do it now. And you can build full products even without this like big computer science background. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty like stuck in my ways, I think, with my current stack. I'm not like the person that's always checking out like the new tools. Um, but I've been working on a website for my SEO services. So I've been looking at some like website builders. So I am playing around with Framer a little bit, which seems to be a good no code uh, website builder. So yeah. And then, yeah, those like boilerplate things, I might play around with at some point, but they're
Yeah,
still
and
scary
what's
right
neat
now.
too is they are, and same for me. But what's so nice is a lot of these products. Let's just use Airtable as an example. It's so popular and it's being developed so quickly that there's just new features all the time within Airtable that you can utilize that might not have been there a month ago, and all of a sudden you can connect to some new thing or run some new formula or some new automation within Airtable, and that almost like levels you up so that you don't need to go out and look for other apps because these tools are improving so quickly. So I think there's something to be said for that as well.
Yeah. And I don't use a lot of I know Airtable has a lot of those automation features in it. I really just use it as a database, and then I'm just like making calls, API calls to and from it, from Autocode. Um, but yeah, I know they have like automation things built in, but I just haven't checked out that stuff. But yeah, they keep coming out with new things. It's just hard to keep up.
It is hard to keep up, for sure. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share? I mean, this has been, I think, really helpful. I think there's a lot of points that you talked about today that will be not only relatable but helpful to the audience. But anything else that you want to share that learned on your journey that you might want to share with your audience, or anything else that you're working on that's exciting that you'd like to share while we're on the call?
I think we covered most of it. Yeah, I think um, the biggest thing is just to start making stuff and put it out there. And
Yeah.
Twitter's a great place for that, just to share what you're building and get feedback. There's a big maker community there. But yeah, I know. Yeah, like you said at the beginning, like everyone has ideas, and now there's these tools to bring them to life. So I would just say go for it and DM me on Twitter, share what you built with me. I just like love the space and trying new things. So don't keep it to yourself. I know so many people build stuff and they never share it. So yeah, send it to me at least. We can start there.
Yeah, the no code community is very encouraging and helpful to one another, and absolutely, I agree with that. Don't be afraid to share your projects. A lot of people build things all the time that never make it to market, and it's not a failure. It's a learning experience, and you'll take the knowledge that you learn from that experience and you'll package it into something better. So, absolutely, 100%. Always share your stuff. There's people there out there that will support you, and you'll learn a lot from that experience. So 100% agree.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate your time and excited to see what you build next.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This has been great. And thanks for being part of the challenge.
Of course, I'll let you know how it goes, and hopefully I'll finish out the month successful.
Sounds good. Thank you.